As you guys know, tall people are the most discriminated against group on the entire planet, perhaps second only to Twitch streamers. As a long-suffering member of the tall community, I have experimented with a bunch of different holster setups, trying to find something that works with my oversized limbs. This is a Swiveling 6390 RDS on the standard Swiveling mid-ride UBL belt loop adapter. That's a pretty good holster setup. The mid-ride UBL drops the holster just a little bit down below the belt line, so it's fairly easy to draw from, and you also don't really need a thigh strap, at least if you're using the actual Swiveling holster. So the Swiveling holsters, the ALS style, have an active locking system, so there's basically no friction on the gun itself. Once you use the thumb lever to defeat the active retention, you're no longer pulling up against any friction, so there's really nothing that's going to drag the holster away from your body. Also, the mid-ride just doesn't really flap around that much when you move. That works pretty well, although it can be a potential source of interference, at least for me, if I'm using body armor. You might think, well, the gun doesn't interfere with the body armor, and that's true up to the point where you draw it, because of course the entire length of the gun has to come out of the holster before you can put it on target. If I'm wearing body armor, it can definitely interfere. More than that, though, I have sort of gorilla proportions. I have a short torso and long arms. So for me, once I get the gun all the way up into that position, I'm kind of contorting my arm a little more than I would like. So mostly what I've been using is this. This is a Swiveling low-ride UBL. That one has got a QLS locking fork adapter system on it and a T-Rex arms thigh strap. The low-ride UBL drops the gun far enough that it no longer interferes, and it's a much more natural draw, at least for me. However, the low-ride also now introduces enough flop that it really helps to have a thigh strap. I probably wouldn't strictly need it if I was still using a Swiveling 6390 style holster. However, if I'm going to use it with something like a T-Rex Arms Ragnarok, which is what I used to have on there, that is a friction fit, like a level 1 retention holster. So drawing out of that holster requires defeating the friction of the holster, and that will pull the holster away from the body pretty badly without the thigh strap. That's an issue I had a lot when trying to use the OWB version of the Filster Floodlight. I tried using that holster with the Tech Lock belt adapter that it came with, but unfortunately the holster sits really far below the belt line, and since it is a friction holster, it's very difficult, at least for me, to draw straight out of it without pulling the holster away and the gun, staying put. God damn it, I fucking hate this holster. Never mind. So quick note about the QLS fork. This is the QLS adapter and the QLS fork just sort of staged in there. Those add quite a lot of bulk to a holster, and I wouldn't recommend them at all if you're using a Swiveling holster because they're already pretty big and they sit far enough off of your leg. I have to use the QLS system with the Ragnarok because it's a very low profile holster that sits way too close to the leg. So if I want it to be far enough out that I can get a good grip on it, I have to use the QLS. Even with the low-ride UBL and the thigh strap, there's still some annoyances with the system that I don't really like. For one, the UBL is just a big inflexible piece of plastic, so it doesn't move very well. Also, I don't like the fact that the belt slots that they have cut in those are way too big. This is the 2-inch belt slot version, just too big, which is why I've got some little zip ties to try to fill some space. And then this one is the 2¼ inch UBL, which is way too big. The other issue is that the thigh strap isn't as far down as I would like. It kind of rides up into my crotchal region. There are a couple of companies that sell improvements to that design. One of them is, I think, by Arbor Arms. It's like a swiveling thigh strap adapter. That one maybe gives it a little bit more drop, and also the swivel might make it a little bit more comfortable. Although really the problem is the inflexibility up at the top of the UBL, so probably doesn't help that much. Another solution, which is cheaper and probably works just as well, is the Vastus System, I think by 9-Toe Design or 9 Toes or something like that. I would like to try one of those out. They're a pretty cheap little flexible piece of like stiffened fabric that drops the thigh strap down by a little bit. Unfortunately, for some reason, they're just like hard to find. They're not in stock ever. So at some point I'll try to get one of those and play with it, but for now, all of those little annoyances are what led to me crawling back to G-Code. This is the G-Code Mule ISS. It's the intermediate suspension system or something like that. That's their modernized version of a drop leg holster, although it sits quite a lot higher. I think they also do make a very low hanging thigh rig if you want to LARP as 90s SWAT or something. So if you put these two side by side, you can see that the holster ends up in a pretty similar position, but the thigh strap on the ISS is quite a lot lower. There are also multiple attachments for the top of the ISS. This is the clip-on paddle version. They also have just like a simple nylon loop. I think they've got like sort of a Velcro-lined belt slide. I think you can get it with another RTI interface. So you could have an RTI wheel up here and then an RTI hanger here and then another RTI wheel down here. I mean, it's kind of an odd scenario, but why not? I actually really like the paddle because it makes the holster a lot easier to get on, and I can put it on with a regular belt as opposed to having to have something threaded onto a 2-layer battle belt, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, I'm kind of getting sick of wearing battle belts, so I tend to not do it anymore. Another advantage of the ISS is that the belt paddle is low profile enough that I could actually wear like a backpacking backpack over it, because the hip belt doesn't really cause an issue. Plays a lot nicer with that, at least, than the UBLs do. Plus, it's just much easier to get on and off. Like basically all of the G-Code holsters and accessories, this uses their RTI wheel as like their, it's called rapid transition interface. It's their quick connect system. So you put an RTI hanger on whatever accessory or holster you're trying to get on there, and then it clips in and locks in place. I don't think that's going to be nearly as solid as the amount of lockup provided by just the plastic Swiveling QLS. This has got a ton of material engagement, whereas the other system is metal on plastic. The RTI interface does work really well, and I think as long as you're using Loctite and you check your fasteners periodically, you'll probably be just fine. So if you go onto G-Code's website, you can find RTI hangers that interface with a whole bunch of different standard holsters. There's one that has the Swiveling 3-hole spacing. There's also the ones that'll work with like a T-Rex Arms holster. T-Rex Arms, actually, they designed their holsters to work with an existing pattern of RTI hanger, I think. It's the number 35. G-Code uses it as the accessory hanger, but it works just fine on the T-Rex holsters. So the question now, I guess, is am I going to put an RTI hanger on this 6390, or am I just going to keep using the non-retention T-Rex Arms Ragnarok with this thing? So I'm not totally sure what I'm going to play around with next, but I know I really like that G-Code ISS. I'm definitely going to be using that just for attaching a handgun pretty much anytime I don't feel like putting on a whole battle belt. I'll probably still keep one of these set up for battle belt use. We'll see how that actually goes. Kind of in a weird position of really liking basically all of G-Code's products, but still not loving G-Code the company. For example, when I went to buy this holster, the cheapest shipping option was like 15 bucks, because it's always like 15 bucks. And you could upgrade to 2-day shipping for, I think, like an extra $2 to $4 or something like that. So, oh, sure. Yeah, then I'll have it there in time for, you know, the next range trip that I was planning. Perfect, let's do that. It still took them, I think, over 10 days to get the thing to me, despite the fact that it was in stock and I paid for 2-day shipping. So G-Code still setting records for the slowest, most expensive shipping in the entire tactical industry. But still, it's a really great system, really well made. So I'm tempted to give them the benefit of the doubt on that. Anyway, let me know if you're also a freak with an ape skeleton and you got any questions about tall people holster shit. All right, thanks for watching. See ya.